If she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, that will be a horrible day.
Donald Trump speaking off the cuff in Wilmington, Delaware today. You heard what you thought you heard, but different people are interpreting it differently. His staff tried to clean it up right away. Quote, "It's called the power of unification," they said. Second Amendment people have an amazing spirit and are tremendously unified, which gives them a great political power. And this year, they will be voting in record numbers, and it won't be for Hillary Clinton. It will be for Donald Trump. The Clinton campaign responded very, very differently, as you would imagine. Quote, "This is simple. What Trump is saying is dangerous. A person seeking to be the president of the United States should not suggest violence in any way." And in a devastating tweet, Elizabeth Warren said this, quote, "At Real Donald Trump makes death threats because he's a pathetic coward who can't handle the fact that he is losing to a girl." Let's bring in our panel now. David Cantonais, senior politics writer for the U.S. News and World Report. Monica Crowley, editor and columnist for the Washington Times, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. I'll ask you what Charles asked me when he first came into the studio just a moment ago. What was your first reaction, David?
You know, I don't know what Donald Trump's intentions were, but this is the problem, because every day we have a statement that he leaves hanging out there, basically for people open for interpretation. And he just gave a follow-up interview to a North Carolina television station where he still didn't renounce what he's being attacked for, which what he could do is pretty easily. He could come out and say, of course, I didn't mean to incite or suggest violence, but he hasn't done that. The other thing I would say is that words do matter, and presidents are supposed to, they have to talk when there's national tragedies. They have to talk when we're in mourning, when bad things happen. And he's too careless with his rhetoric on this stuff that allows himself to be open for these multiple interpretation and the worst meaning.
Monica?
Well, when I first heard it, I thought obviously he was referring to the political influence of the gun rights advocates. Clearly, I think that's what he meant. But he is operating in an environment now where Mrs. Clinton, her campaign, the left, the media, is going to twist every single thing he says. He's got to understand, he's got to be more precise with his language. But it's also clear that Mrs. Clinton, her campaign, and the Democrats do not want to talk about the issues. I mean, we just got GDP numbers that are absolutely atrocious for the American worker. Second quarter, 1.2% GDP growth. First quarter revised down to 0.8%. We got a report today that said productivity is at its lowest. Worker productivity is at its lowest since the 1970s. The average American worker is suffering. They don't want to talk about that because then she'd have to be in the position of defending the last 8 years and Democratic policies. She has wingmen in the press who will do her dirty work for her. But Donald Trump has to understand that that's what he's up against here.
Charles?
Well, when I first heard it, I thought obviously he's talking about NRA folks lobbying against these kinds of judges because the alternative is too nuts. Even for Trump, even in his offhanded remarks, even in his sort of wise guy mode. I still think that's true. I can't quite believe he would have implied otherwise. But how many times have we heard on this set, have we heard from every politician, every analyst, every Democrat, every Republican, of course, advising Trump and saying you have to be responsible, watch your words. And they say, well, he turned the corner because he read a speech yesterday that was coherent. That's not turning the corner. There's a matter of character. I don't think a man at that age, a year and a few months into a campaign, is going to become responsible. You don't say stuff like that. It can be seen otherwise. And it's not the press, it's not the Democrats. This is a self-inflicted wound.
I think a lot of people thought that after the Detroit Economic Club speech that he would go back into a precision of language or discipline, but he has not.
They've said that a million times.
Yes.
We've had so many, it could be a ballet.
Well, he's speaking right now. Just moments ago, he pre-taped an interview with Sean Hannity, which will be on at 10 o'clock tonight, but here's a brief snippet of what he had to say about it.
Nobody in that room thought anything other than what you just said. This is a political movement. This is a strong, powerful movement, the Second Amendment. You know, Hillary wants to take your guns away. She wants to leave you unprotected in your home. This is a tremendous political movement. The NRA, as you know, endorsed me. They're terrific people, Wayne and Chris and all of the people over there. And by the way, they've already, I just saw, they tweeted out, basically they agree 100% with what I said. And there can be no other interpretation. Even reporters have told me. I mean, give me a break.
So many moderate Republicans have been rearranging chairs on this ocean liner, and a few of them now dove off the ship. Here's Mark Kirk in a political advertisement he's now running, and also Senator Susan Collins of Maine.
Mark Kirk bucked his party to say Donald Trump is not fit to be commander-in-chief.
The Republican Party believes in the dignity and worth of the individual. Based on what I've seen Donald Trump say over and over and over again, that is not his style.
And last night, 50 former national security advisors, high-level people, announced they will not vote for Donald Trump. These are people who have worked in Republican administrations. David, we're still 90 days out there, you know, at least a month or more before the first debate. A lot can happen.
Yes, but the problem is, I mean, Susan Collins, no one knows her outside of Maine. She's not going to have an effect on this national election. But the problem is, Republicans are now feeling emboldened to cut loose. National security officials, congressmen, senators, and I was told by a Republican consultant today that Mitch McConnell has basically said privately to all the senators, you do what you need to do. I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to press you to get on Trump's bandwagon. We're basically cutting you loose. That is a real problem because he had a chance at the national convention to unite the party and to make it hard for people to break loose. But now you're seeing a trickle. What were we talking about all last week? It was a former Jeb Bush advisor, a former Chris Christie advisor, one by one. And this is what is going to, I mean, it could really endanger him and own the news cycle week after week if you start seeing
even loyalty seems to be a little bit tentative now for Donald Trump.
Well, by the way, Democrats never do this. They always come together, or at the very least shut up and hold their lip. Witness the Sanders team doing exactly this. Republicans always engage in the circular firing squad, without a doubt, every single time. Look, Donald Trump can leverage this to his advantage if he is smart. He can take a look at this group of 50 national security people, most of whom are George W. Bush veterans, so this is essentially Jeb's revenge, and hold up their letter and say, you know what, you were the experts that missed 9/11, kept the borders open, missed the rise of China, and by the way, where were you in 4 years when Mrs. Clinton was Secretary of State? Where were you on her disasters in Benghazi, Libya, Iraq, Iran, the Russian reset? Where were any of you during that? You want to criticize my words as the big threat? No, her actions actually caused death and destruction, including the lives of 4 Americans. That's the kind of argument he should make, and it's a very powerful one if he can sustain it.
Last word, Charles.
The more damaging event is not the national security people, it's Susan Collins. What she does is she gives psychological cover to Republicans. She is not nationally known, but she is a moderate Republican who's respected and very well liked in Maine. What she does is she tells Republicans all over, and remember, Republicans are only supporting Trump at about 78%, whereas Romney had in the 90s. She is saying to resistant and recalcitrant Republicans, it's psychologically okay. People will say, oh, you want to elect Hillary? Well, not. What you're saying is it's a matter of conscience. I can't support him because of X, Y, and Z. And when she does it, it allows other people who don't have her position or her stature to do the same. That's why it's important.
They're following her lead with the deck chairs.